Private Members Business, Notice Number 5, Higher Education Support Amendment, Fair Study and Opportunity Bill 2024.
And I call the member for Fowler.
Speaker, I present the Higher Education Support Amendment, Fair Study and Opportunity Bill 2024 and the explanatory memorandum. I move that this bill be now read a second time.
Just the clerk has to read the title. Sorry. And I call the clerk.
First reading, a bill for an act to amend the Higher Education Support Act 2003 and for related purposes.
I call the member for Fowler.
I move that this bill be now read a second time.
Call the member for Fowler.
Speaker, I've said many times in this House the importance of education to my late mother. While in refugee camps in Hong Kong, my mother chose to be resettled in Australia because she believed that Australia had the best education system in the world. It had. Ever since my election in 2022 and having spent the last few years engaging with my Fowler youth and my community through door knocking, I know that the cost of living has impacted their everyday life profoundly. For the young people living in my area, travelling to and from university costs them time, as our public transport system is not connected. It costs them money, as they have to pay for the increased fares, tolls, petrol, food costs, materials for their courses, and of course not to mention the HECS debt, which I started to call for its reduction since setting foot in the House. I know the challenges of growing up in a low-income household and having to balance work-life while continuing my tertiary education. I was working full-time as a reporter while studying my Bachelor of Arts degree. I chose a simple arts degree majoring in international relations, infused with philosophy and political science. I chose the arts degree because it allowed me to explore a broad range of subjects, and I wanted to increase my knowledge about what was happening in many parts of our world, while at the same time I wanted to understand how philosophers like Socrates, Plato, Adam Smith, Thomas Aquinas and Hannah Arendt's views and perspectives of the world during their existence. I believe the arts degree broadened my thinking and knowledge, contributing to my life's journey that led me to be elected as the first independent member of my wonderful federal electorate in Fowler, a very multicultural and very diverse community. And I can't emphasise enough how humbling the opportunity is and will be for me for a long time. But what I did not have to face during the time of studying my arts degree was the enormous spiralling debt that would confront me as soon as I entered the workforce. What this bill does is to begin to address the completely unfair and unreasonable course costs that have been imposed on arts students since the Jobs Ready Graduate Policy, the JRG, which was introduced by the Morrison government. This policy, which the Albanese government seems to drag their feet on, has seen students charge over 3 times as much per unit for studying subjects related to history, archaeology, anthropology and political science, just to name a few, compared to maths, education and agriculture. Indeed, the subjects listed under the Society and Culture cluster now attract a maximum fee chargeable to students alongside law, banking, finance, business and management. I know that many members on all sides of the House believe that this is wrong. I'm sure there would be many young Labor and young Liberal members who would very much appreciate their members supporting this bill. The JRG package was introduced in theory to incentivise students to choose STEM subjects at university. But the JRG package was premised on the incorrect assumption that students would respond to price signal that disincentivised enrolling in arts courses. So unsuccessful has been the JRG package that students have continued to register on arts courses despite the enormous costs involved. All that this has achieved is to burden arts students unfairly financially before they have had a chance to begin their careers. This led to unintended consequences of systematic inequity within the education system, simply because certain students chose their passions in arts and culture. How is this equitable education system? But even if JRG had been successful in pushing Australian students into STEM fields, this would still be a flawed approach. Australia needs to have the men and women educated in the fields of history, geography, politics and archaeology, while STEM is important in seeking solutions to questions as to what can be done in the Earth's precious resources. Arts degrees look at the deeper questions of how technology impacts us and assesses the moral questions raised by these advances. Australia has a great concern for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, and in seeking to understand the cultures that existed before colonisation and how they continue to shape a common life, anthropology has arguably never been as important to Australian life as it is today as we seek to find our identity as Australians in the 21st century. Students from my electorate of Fowler are disproportionately affected by the JRG policy. Professor Michelle Arrow of Macquarie University, who is president of the Australian Historical Association, has told me that the JRG legislation has, quote, brought inequity to so many students, especially the poor, the Indigenous, the women students seeking to make a better life for themselves, unquote. Fowler is one of the poorest areas of our nation and has the largest community of non-English speaking families. The fact that many of our young people get into university is testament to their hard work and the efforts of our wonderful schools and community groups. Punishing them with hike-up fees is a real kick in the teeth to their aspirations. We as lawmakers in this House can do better than this. We entered this House to make a difference to our communities. Sometimes there are unfortunate results despite our best intentions. This bill seeks to begin to put right for a policy that was all downside. There was no benefit for the community, but many arts students have been left worse off, especially those struggling in Western Sydney. Do not forget them. I commend the bill to the House and I cede the rest of my speaking time to the member for Calare. Thank you, Deputy Speaker.
I thank the member for Fowler.